Is Google holding your site back in the rankings? Are those nerds keeping your site from getting more traffic? I'm kidding. Mostly. What is the Google Sandbox? Is it real? Chances are you want more traffic to your site. Look, we all do. And if your site is on the young side, the Sandbox might be impacting you. We'll talk about the Sandbox concept and how to get more traffic to your site even if it's young. I'll tell you where to go next to get your traffic to your young site with little to no money as well. I did some investigating and called some friends to see what they thought. My buddy Kyle Roof and my buddy Ron Stefanski. Of course, I researched using that magical tool of Google. Actually, let's go to the source. What does Google say about the matter? Back in 2005, Matt Cutt said, there isn't a sandbox, but the algorithm might affect some sites under some circumstances in a way that a webmaster would perceive as being sandboxed. Applying some logic there, what's the difference if that is what is perceived? Anyway, more recently, in 2019, John Mueller flat out said, there is no sandbox. Google says there isn't a sandbox, but they do say it can take a bit of time for search engines to catch up with your content and learn to treat it appropriately. It's one thing to have a fantastic website, but search engines generally need a bit more to be able to confirm that and to rank your content appropriately. Let's be honest, Google doesn't embody the greatest example of transparency about the whole algorithm and how it works, and they've had some run-ins with the Department of Justice as well. So yeah, but honestly, I can't blame Google for not telling us exactly what's in the algorithm, since they do have to stay ahead of spammers and deal with shareholders and make profits and all that stuff. Fine, Google didn't tell us much, so let's go back to some experts and see what they tell us. Brian Dean and Neil Patel, people that know what they're talking about. So Brian doesn't ever mention the sandbox in his content, but Brian doesn't publish very much or very often. Neil Patel, on the other hand, is prolific, so maybe he mentions the sandbox and maybe if it's real. As I dug deeper, I see that Neil doesn't mention the sandbox, but he's a bit more specific, saying it could take up to 6 months to get traction. He mentions you might not be at the top of page 1, but to get traction. So that's a little bit vague, but helpful. Let's hear from Kyle Roof, an SEO expert and frequent speaker at big conferences, plus Ron Stefanski, who owns a portfolio of niche sites and works full-time on SEO and content sites. So Kyle and Ron, what is the sandbox?
And the sandbox is the idea that Google puts a site, a brand new site, in timeout for a certain amount of time before it'll let that site rank for keywords.
The Google Sandbox is basically a mythical unicorn of sorts that Google has put in place that basically slows down how quickly a website can rank from an SEO perspective when websites are launched.
I say the sandbox is the concept that your site won't rank well for competitive terms as well as it should during the first 6 to 12 months after starting work on your site. Well, back to Kyle, do you think the sandbox is real?
No, I do not. And the reason is that I can see that it's not a real thing. What the sandbox is actually just reality.
What about you, Ron? Do you think the sandbox is real?
Absolutely. Every experience that I've had, I've created 7 different websites, and I've never really had success with any of those websites prior to the first 6 months. I've had a few little things. I found that some websites will grow faster than others, but within 6 months, it's a very slow process. So if you're a new beginner, know that. But it's all part of, the whole process of building a website. That's why I say it always takes about a year until you really see success.
Well, crap. It's SEO, so it's not unusual to have different opinions from smart people, and sometimes it's just semantics. Okay, let's say the sandbox is not real. Kyle, what can we do to get more traffic to our sites sooner?
A brand new site will have difficulty ranking for high volume, high difficulty keywords because Google doesn't know the site yet. It doesn't trust the site. Why would that site rank for high volume or high competition keywords. But that site, a brand new site, will rank for low volume, low competition keywords, and quite quickly. Often very quickly out of the gate, as soon as that content is up and has been crawled. If you're going after low competition, low volume keywords, you will see that the sandbox is not a real thing.
I like it. Low competition with low search volumes. That's what I aim for when I start a new site. That's what I teach in my courses, and it helps you get that momentum early on. Of course, Ron acknowledges the sandbox. So what do you recommend, Ron?
My number one tip to shorten the length of the Google Sandbox is link building. If you're not doing link building, it is an absolute requirement in my opinion. I think that, especially when you're starting out, I think guest posting, just publishing some different guest posts out there, is a really, really good way to help yourself get quickly out of the sandbox.
All right, great. This is clear as mud now. So let's break it down so it's actually helpful. Brian Dean doesn't talk about the sandbox, but he does say it can take a little time to rank. Neil Patel doesn't mention the sandbox specifically, but he says it could take up to 6 months to rank and get traction. Conversely, Kyle Roof says there's not a sandbox, but competitive terms can take longer to rank for. I do agree with that. Ron says the sandbox is very real and that links can help. Now that makes sense to me too, because links help build authority so Google trusts your site more and they may rank you higher, you'll get more traffic. That adds up to me. I've definitely seen sites get more traffic after 6 and 12 months due to improved rankings. So even though Brian, Neil, Kyle, and Ron have stated things a little bit differently, the broad strokes are similar. It takes time to rank. So that makes sense to me. And if you haven't commented yet, please do let me know what you think of the sandbox. Have you been impacted by the sandbox? Have you seen rankings and traffic increase after 6 months? I published another video about how to get traffic early on. So right after this video, watch that one. I will link to it. What you need to do early on is go after low competition keywords, low search volume keywords so that you can rank faster. You'll get more traffic early on, you'll get traction, and you'll build momentum. Get backlinks and promote your site. Don't buy crappy backlinks from Fiverr or anything like that, but get some backlinks. Publish content. Publish a lot of content, as much as you can tolerate, as much as you can afford. Every time I've done this, it's paid off big, and you could see the traffic growth very clearly. Finally, if you haven't started your site yet, please start it now. If the sandbox exists or if it doesn't, the sooner you start, the sooner you will rank. Everyone seems to agree that your site needs some time before it'll rank. And don't forget to watch the video on how to drive traffic to a brand new site with little or no money. Check out the links around here somewhere. By the way, I'm Doug Cunnington. I blog over at Niche Site Project and publish videos here on YouTube. Be sure to watch that video on how to get traffic to your young site.